So, as you may already know, Mortal Shell is now free on Epic Games this week. And you know what that means? It's time to see if we can play this game on a low-end PC. I actually had this game in my library for a long time and should have tested it ages ago. But here we are now. Mortal Shell is a deep action RPG that tests your sanity, resilience, and most importantly, your patience in a shattered world. Sounds like fun, right? Well, let's see how it holds up on my i3 Potato with no graphics card. So, I set everything to low, sacrificed some FPS to the gaming gods, and started the game. And I got around 20 to 25 FPS. Yeah, not great, but also not the worst thing I've seen. Given that the minimum requirements mention a 4th Gen i5, 8GB RAM, and a GTX 970, I was hoping for a smoother experience, considering how other games with similar requirements have performed better. But no, Mortal Shell refuses to compromise. It does not offer FSR support, which would have really helped in pushing those frames up a little. I tried every possible tweak, lowering resolution, turning off shadows, sacrificing my firstborn. Nothing worked. But hey, is it unplayable? Well, that depends. If you're someone who grew up playing games on 15 FPS thinking it was normal, then sure, you'll be fine. If not, well, good luck dodging with 20 FPS. Let's talk about the gameplay because that's where things get interesting. Mortal Shell is clearly inspired by Dark Souls, and by inspired, I mean it really wants to be Dark Souls. The combat is slow, methodical, and brutally punishing. You're given different shells to inhabit, each with its own stats and playstyle. But the main standout mechanic? Hardening. And no, I'm not talking about what happens when you see a new gaming PC. This is a unique system where you can literally turn into stone mid-fight to absorb an enemy's attack. Sounds cool, right? It is. Until you realize you can just abuse it to avoid damage instead of learning actual dodging skills. This makes the game a little easier than it should be, especially once you get used to it. All the weapons and shells are fun to use. Except the Foundling. Don't be the Foundling. Trust me, just don't. Boss fights. They are cool, well-designed, and fun, but thanks to the hardening mechanic, they feel way easier than they should. My personal favorite was the Ice Boss, because who doesn't love fighting a frosty nightmare while their PC sounds like a dying jet engine? So, overall, the gameplay is engaging, but it's a mix of brilliance and slight disappointment. The moment-to-moment combat feels impactful, and there's a certain thrill in mastering each shell's playstyle. However, the game never truly pushes you to adapt beyond the hardening mechanic, which means the challenge plateaus rather than intensifies. Now, let's talk about what's not so great. Firstly, the world feels a bit empty. The first area is fantastic, but after that, it all feels the same. It lacks the rich, interconnected design that From Software games have mastered. And let's not even talk about enemy variety, because there barely is any. You'll keep running into the same mobs over and over again, to the point where you start feeling like you're stuck in a loop. The combat also doesn't evolve much, meaning if you've mastered hardening early, you'll breeze through most encounters without much effort. And then, there's the biggest problem. The game is fun, but not memorable. It's one of those games that you start, enjoy for a bit, and then suddenly find yourself wanting to replay Dark Souls instead. The progression system is also quite limited compared to other Souls-like games, making it harder to stay invested for the long run. If a game leaves you craving something else, then it's clear that it didn't do enough to truly stand out. So, what's the final verdict? Mortal Shell is a solid, but flawed Souls-like game. It has a unique hardening mechanic, fun weapons, and some really cool bosses. But it also suffers from repetitive enemies, a somewhat bland world, and a combat system that doesn't evolve much. On a low-end PC, it's technically playable at 20 to 25 FPS, but it's not smooth, and without FSR support, there's not much you can do to improve performance. Would I recommend it? If you love Souls-like games and just want to try something similar but different, give it a shot, especially since it's free right now. But if you want a polished, memorable, and deep Souls-like experience, maybe just reinstall Dark Souls instead. And that's it for today's low-end PC performance test. If you found this video helpful or just mildly entertaining, hit that like button, and if you want to see more low-end gaming pain, make sure to subscribe. Also, let me know in the comments what game you want me to test next. And until next time, keep gaming, even if it's at 20 FPS. Enjoy the rest of the gameplay.